Rajon Rondo goes down in Boston, so maybe it's time to talk about the Chicago Bulls. Welcome into the Sporting News Studios. I'm Tom Vandervoort, here to talk with me about the National Basketball Association, our NBA writer, Sean Deveney. Sean, when Rondo went down in Boston, I think a lot of people looked at Chicago 27-17 without Derrick Rose and said, that's pretty good. How are they doing it there in the Windy City?
Yeah, certainly when you look at the Eastern Conference, you've got the Heat. And then you've got sort of everybody else. I think a lot of people expected the Celtics to make a run, and that is obviously going to be difficult now without Rondo. But you've got the Bulls at 27-17, really looking like a team that could wind up being the real challenger for the Heat. They will get Rose back next month. In his absence, you've really got to credit Tom Thibodeau and the job that he does. Really is underrated. He was Coach of the Year a couple of years ago. He probably should win it again. I don't think he will. But given what he's had to deal with, the way that they've been able to play defense, they rank third in defensive efficiency. They allow 42.6% shooting. That's coaching, and that's something that he probably doesn't get enough credit for.
You absolutely can go a long way with the defense. And what happens when Rose gets back? Is there at all any kind of adjustment or transition period, or is it going to be kind of seamless for them?
Well, I think that the hope is that Carlos Boozer will continue to play the way that he has. They're 11-4 in the month of January, and Boozer is a big part of that. 19.5 points per game in the month, 10.1 rebounds. He has been obviously a disappointment since his signing in 2010, but if he can keep that up and get that pick-and-roll game going with Derrick Rose, I think that will really help Rose readjust.
Now, you talked about the Heat and obviously the focus there, always LeBron James. Chris Bosch, though, is having a pretty good year. Field goal percentage is actually up quite a bit this season. Talk about Bosch's year, and maybe his teammates need to talk about him a little more, too.
Yeah, that was something that came up. He had a great start to the game in the loss that they had in Boston on Sunday, the double overtime loss. But in the second half, they sort of went away from him, and that's sort of been the problem with the Heat this year, is that they've got this great weapon inside, and Bosch is having his best season, certainly as a member of the Heat, averaging 17.2 points, 54.3% shooting. That's a career high, but he's only shooting 12.2 shots per game. That's just not enough. Obviously they bring in Ray Allen, and Ray Allen's going to take some shots away from some players. To an extent, it's been Dwayne Wade. It hasn't been LeBron at all. He's pretty much putting up similar numbers as to what he's done in the past. But too much, those shots have come at the expense of Chris Bosch. And I just think that if you want to get an outside-inside game going, you've got to have Chris Bosch getting more shots.
Now, the Heat go to Brooklyn Wednesday night to take on the Brooklyn Nets, and obviously the Nets have turned it around since PJ Carlesimo became the interim coach. I think they're 13-4, if I did my math right on that. And what do you think Carlesimo's future is as the Nets head coach? Is the interim tag going to come off this guy?
Yeah, owner Mikhail Prokhorov will be in town for Wednesday's game, and so that's going to be sort of a litmus test. If they can go in and beat a team like Miami in front of the owner, that's going to make the coach look pretty good. With the way this team has played and the enthusiasm that they've shown for him, there's a chance that he could wind up with a contract that goes beyond, and he could wind up with that contract even before the end of the year. And certainly we've seen their star player, the $100 million man, Darren Williams, play much better under PJ Carlesimo than he had under Avery Johnson. In the month of January, Darren Williams is averaging 19 points and 8.5 assists. Those are way up. If the star player's input counts at all, and it does, then you've got to figure that PJ has a pretty good shot at getting a long-term deal here.
What's your take on him overall as a coach, just looking at his whole career? I was looking at his record. I said, wow, his record's actually a lot better than I thought. Is Carlesimo, or had he been, a little bit underrated maybe? Yeah,
I think that he had a couple situations. Obviously, the Latrell Sprewell choking situation is what everyone thinks of first. But no one really remembers that he did a pretty good job after Rick Adelman left Portland. That was, a tough situation to walk into. He had done a pretty good job in Golden State other than the Sprewell situation. And I think the last situation that people sort of associate with him is the debacle in Seattle. That team that was taken over by Scott Brooks when they went to Oklahoma City. I mean, they were really bad in the early years with Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, and that's sort of been the lasting legacy of PJ Carlesimo. So I'm sure he'd like the opportunity to come back and show, hey, I can be a pretty good coach.
Excellent, man. Listen, Sean, thanks so much for your time. Love talking to you every week. Looking forward to next week.
Thanks, Tom.